My name is Jen, and I am a recently diagnosed, middle-aged, kind of old autistic woman. I actually got my diagnosis earlier this month. I'm a low support needs autistic person. However, I am in the middle of going through some physical therapy for things that are not related to autism uh, and everything to do with getting old, basically. So I was thinking, for the first time really in my life, what are my support needs for this specific situation, or really others? And I did some brainstorming. Some of these I think are going to be great for me, and others I've included maybe that don't meet my specific situation, but might help you. Tip number 1. If there are deal breakers, discuss them before your first appointment. Bring a list. You might find that there are some deal breakers for you that either, maybe if this is your first time in physical therapy, that you've never thought about before, or it's been a while since you've been in physical therapy and your needs have changed. So I have a few examples. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list. Do you think it's really important that you have the same physical therapist for every session? If it is, you might want to bring that up in advance and make sure that the scheduler knows that that's really important to you, as well as that this really is an accommodation due to your autism. It's not uncommon in some practices that maybe the first appointment or two, a physical therapist sees you, evaluates you, and then maybe a physical therapist assistant works with you going forward. So if you do need that same person, that is something that would be handy and relevant for the practice to know. Another example is, do you need a more private space in case of a meltdown? This could be either because of just, pain and you going into meltdowns or shutdowns more often with more severity because of the trauma maybe that's gone on with your body. But it could also be, if you're going to freak out that somebody has to touch you in ways to show you different exercises, if there's a more private space available, bringing that up and asking in advance might help you to secure it. Or if the type of therapy is something that is a little bit more personal, like if you're going to have pelvic floor exercises or something of that nature, the practice might have a more private space for something like that as well. Not every practice will, though. A lot of them, you walk in, at least in the United States, and it's a big room with a whole bunch of exercise equipment and tables for patients to lay on for things like massage and different types of exercises. So if it's a deal breaker, ask the question in advance, and you might need to find out, is there more than one facility that I need to visit? If that is an option for you with insurance, financial concerns, all of that kind of thing. Another one is, if you are somebody that has a hard time thinking on the spot, or maybe has selective mutism, or has difficulty communicating when you're in a lot of pain, just in general, and processing new information when you're in pain, something you can ask for that a lot of practices will accommodate is to send you basically the exercises in advance. Lots of times there's like a website they pull them from, and there's pictures and instructions. That might be helpful because you can think of questions to ask, coming into your first session if they plan on using those exercises with you, as well as, if one of these exercises is going to be a deal breaker, you can ask, is there an alternative exercise that maybe would be better for you and your comfort level? And the last example that I have is, do you have a support person or a service animal that needs to be with you? A lot of places will be fine with that, but other places might need to know that in advance because, let's say they have another patient who is really allergic to dogs, like anaphylaxis type allergic. Maybe they need to schedule you at a different time than that patient. Or maybe you've never thought about bringing a support person with you before if you haven't had an autism diagnosis in the past, or maybe you always have and you've kind of aged out and now you're a legal adult and you don't know, can I have the support person with me? There might be privacy restrictions in terms of what that support person can and can't do, where they can and can't go. It could be something as simple as the physical therapist will make sure that there's an extra chair there for that person to sit. But if you know that in advance and can have that conversation, and it's a deal breaker that they can't accommodate that for some reason, then you know maybe you need to look at another practice. Tip number 2, bring sunglasses. If you're on your back doing exercises, they come in handy. Because let's face it, bright fluorescent lights are pretty not cool anyway for a lot of us. And if you have to look directly at them, it's even worse. But a bonus to this is that if you have mirrored sunglasses like mine, or your sunglasses are dark enough, then you don't have to worry about making eye contact the entire session. Tip number 3, ask for choices in the moment if you feel like you need an accommodation. A couple of examples of what this might look like just as a starting point. Let's say that the physical therapist has asked you to complete 20 reps of an exercise, and maybe it's 20 reps on each side. But let's say you have executive function challenges where counting and doing the exercise and watching them to see if they're giving you any sort of feedback that you're not doing it correctly just gets in the way. It does for me. I always lose count of how many I've done, and I suspect sometimes I do double the number because I don't want to underdo it. One thing you can do is ask, can you just set a timer instead? And when it beeps, I know I'm finished. But the other way is true also. If they've set a beeper, a timer, and it's going to beep, and you're like, you know what, I would rather count because maybe counting and numbers are your thing, and it gives you some comfort to focus on the counting rather than the pain, you can ask for the reverse accommodation. Another example is lots of times in physical therapy, a physical therapist will need to touch you to show you what to do, how far to bend something. Maybe they need to do some sort of massage, something of that, I'm tongue-tied, something like that. One thing that you can do is, just as an accommodation request, is to let them know, anytime you're going to touch me, please tell me in advance, tell me where you're going to touch me, and tell me what kind of pressure you're going to give. Because I know a lot of autistic folks, maybe deep pressure feels good and light pressure on a touch is like awful, or the reverse, or maybe all touch is really awful and you just have to sort of grit your teeth and bear with it, but you at least don't want the surprise. Tip number 4, the rules might not be what you think they are, so ask if you're unsure. Honest truth. Getting my autism diagnosis after, first of all, not having any clue that I was autistic for the vast majority of my life, and then for a period of time self-diagnosing, and then a couple weeks ago getting my actual formal diagnosis. One of the things that is the most stressful for me as a human that finally makes sense is why I get so much anxiety before I do something new, because I don't know what the rules are. I can sit the night before, which is honestly why I think I have some of my sleep problems as an autistic person. And the details, I sweat them, and it gets me really stressed out. How early can I show up? Do I have to sit in a certain place? Do I have to wear a certain type of attire? Is it expected that the person that I'm talking to is the authority and I can't question anything they say because the context doesn't dictate that that's cool? Is it that we're peers and I can give constructive criticism in the moment. Whatever the situation is, I want to know the rules, and I want to know them badly. And because I'm so newly diagnosed, there are a ton of things that I've thought forever are rules, and I've been asking everybody I know lately, well, what's the rule about this situation? Or what are the rules about that situation? And some of my neurotypical friends and family and acquaintances have really looked at me like, how can you not know the rules to this? I've seen you in this situation before. And it's always been a little bit of a deference, really, to, okay, I'm just going to watch everybody around me and see if I can figure it out. So there might be some rules about physical therapy, even if you've done it before, that aren't true. Or maybe they were true at a previous facility you went to, and this is a different business, and they have different rules. So a few examples of things that I'm doing physical therapy right now. It's for my neck. So I came in, and I was wearing sandals. It's November, and I was still in sandals because I hate wearing socks because of sensory things. And I walked in the front door, and I looked around, and I saw the other people in the waiting room all had tennis shoes on. And I had a momentary freak out where I just wanted to turn around and leave, because I'm like, oh no, they're going to tell me I can't do this physical therapy because maybe there's some sort of exercise I have to do where traction is going to be really important with my feet, and they're going to turn me away. And I was just flipping out. So I asked, I said, do I have to wear tennis shoes for this? And my physical therapist was like, no, not for what we're doing. So then I was like, great, I don't have to worry about this. Something that might be an issue for you is, can you take a break midway through? Maybe doing an hour is just too intense. Or maybe you know that at a certain time every day you have to use the restroom, and, you're going to have a Bob's Burger moment. And if you've ever seen that show, and, it's going to cause you anxiety going, well, I'm in the middle and this person is giving me their time. Is it cool if I just take 10 minutes and I'm in the restroom? Ask. You probably won't be told no about the restroom, but, you never know. One that's big for me, not so much the practice I'm at now, even though it's still kind of true. The one I went to before this one, they always had the radio playing. And it was always on a station that I loathed. And it was great in the sense that at that time, the physical therapist didn't like the radio station either, but he didn't change it. So I thought the rule was, if music is playing in physical therapy, it has to stay on. Somebody makes that decision, and it's higher up than the physical therapist. Maybe it's the owner of the practice or something. And I really struggle with that because I have a hard time separating out sounds if there's a lot of competing sounds happening at the same time. Like if I'm in a restaurant and somebody's having a conversation with me and there's a lot of background noise or music playing, it takes me so much energy and concentration to hear the other person talking. Turns out, it's not a rule. It's not a rule anywhere. He just liked to make fun of the music. So, incidentally, I think that guy got fired for some other reason, or was maybe a temp or something, and so he left, and I started making fun of the radio station with the next physical therapist, because I kind of thought that was the thing, not thinking about the fact that, hey, this is a totally different human. And she's like, oh, you don't like the radio station? And I'm like, not really. And she said, well, is there a different station you want to listen to? We're the only ones in here right now. And I said, can you turn it off? And so she went over and she turned it off. But if I hadn't had that conversation or asked or said anything stupid, like, well, I felt stupid in the moment to be like, yeah, this is corny. Who knows if she liked it or not. I saved myself an hour of all of that physical exhaustion trying to filter out that sound. And the last example I have, just as an idea point, is Sometimes physical therapists work with more than one patient at a time, depending on, volume and, if somebody called out sick that day or whatever the case is. If you're somebody that needs to stim in order to feel right with the world, and you finished your exercise, but that physical therapist is working with the other person, and you're just basically killing time waiting, if a stim for you is to walk back and forth in the room, or do anything that's not hurting other people, ask if it's okay if you do that. And you probably aren't going to be told no unless you're in somebody else's way who's trying to do some sort of other exercise in the room. But don't assume, ask. You might be able to do it. Tip number 5. If you dislike small talk, tell your physical therapist. Turns out, you can just tell the person that you don't want to talk. Same goes for the beautician, or the barber, or your dentist, or the dentist hygienist, which that one has an aside. That one has always really bothered me because their hands are in your freaking mouth. How do they expect you to respond? I have never understood that. But anyway, I'm going to calm myself because we're not talking about the dentist. I'm talking about the dentist. The video really shouldn't be talking about the dentist. I'm impulsive. I say what I am thinking about, and this is one of the times that I'm not editing out of the video because it's true. But yeah, if you just tell your physical therapist that you don't like small talk, odds are they will talk to you in a very friendly way, and they'll help you with, whatever exercises or stretches or whatever it is that you need. And it's probably not going to be a big deal because this is not a social relationship. This is not somebody that, outside of being in the physical therapy room that you necessarily are ever going to talk to again, unless you're in a small town or something. So yeah, just tell them. Tip number 6. When the physical therapist has helped you, thank them. It's a social rule that's easy to forget when we're in pain and tired, or if you followed my advice on the other slide and told them that you don't like small talk. And I'm putting this here because I honestly think that I'm going to forget to say thank you. Not because you're going to forget to say thank you, but because I'm going to be like, sorry, I don't like talking to people. And then I'm in my head thinking about things, and then we just finish and I leave and I forget. So that's why. Tip number 7. Remind yourself that things will get better the more you work at it. Tip number 8. If you need a distraction from physical discomfort, ask the physical therapist if it's okay if you info dump about your special interest. So I debated whether or not I wanted to put this in here or even talk about it beyond reading the slide. Because, on one hand, let's face it, if you just decide to info dump as a comforting measure, or just because autistic joy in talking about special interests, they can't really do anything about it. It's not like they can walk away because they need to actually work with you. But I mentioned asking the permission, I guess you could call it, for a couple of reasons. One, if they're working with another patient at the same time as you, and you are, I'll say me, I'm talking about one of my special interests, which is the music of the singer Dimash Kudaibergen from Kazakhstan, who is the most amazing singer on the planet. You have to go to his channel and listen to him. His first name is spelled D-I-M-A-S-H, Dimash. Look up the song called SOS. Okay, now that I've done that because I felt it was necessary, I will continue. You can do that, but if they're trying to work with somebody else, they may not want to be rude and cut you off to work with the other person. And You know, if they're not autistic, they're autistic, they might wait for you to finish and not understanding that you will talk until either you are finished, like an hour later, if you're like me, or until they just kind of get really blunt and interrupt you. Interrupt me, not me. The other reason I ask is because depending on how the practice is run, how busy the person is that day, a lot of physical therapists, if you watch them, when you're doing your exercises, if they don't have somebody else to work with, they're at their computer writing the notes that they're required to write for like insurance and stuff. So they don't have to stay late beyond their shift in order to write, you know, a full day's roster of patients' notes at the end. So I say this one, I bring it up a little in jest, but kind of not in jest, but yet with a caveat that they might really mind if you infodump, because they might be trying to multitask, and it's easy to overlook that that's what they're doing. Tip number 9, read through the instructions for homework while you're still at the facility so you can ask questions while you have the physical therapist's attention. This is a tip that I included because I personally really need it. So lots of times they will give you a handout with pictures and diagrams and steps written out for all the different exercises that they want you to do between, you know, the time you go home and the next time you have physical therapy with them. I lose instructions. I don't read them until the night before they're due, and then I realize I don't understand them. If you watched the introduction video for me, you'll know that I have really bad spatial awareness. So if it comes to me looking at a diagram and trying to figure out left from right, up from down, anything like that, I probably don't know what it is without asking. Also specific to me, that might apply to you. It might just be a me thing. Also, if you watched my introduction video, I think it's also part of why I get lost. So let's say there are 4 steps to doing an exercise. You have to position your body a certain way. You have to make some sort of a movement with a body part. Then you have to like turn to stretch, and then you're supposed to maybe hold it for 5 seconds or whatever arbitrary number that would be. And let's say I'm making something completely up. Let's say that those 4 steps make up an exercise called Marshmallow Snowman. The way my brain works, if you ask me how to do Marshmallow Snowman, even if I've had the same homework and I've done the same homework every night for 8 weeks, I won't be able to tell you the steps. I have to read through them every time. And if there's even one part of the steps that's unclear, asking when they're first given to you is helpful. The reason I think this might be tied to autism is a lot of autistic folks tend to see details and be bottom-up thinkers rather than top-down and big picture thinkers. And so I don't see Marshmallow Snowman. I see steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and probably by the time I've gotten to the 4th step, I've forgotten what steps 1 and 2 are. And I don't make the connection between steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, especially if I'm on my own working through something and not getting the auditory input of the therapist giving me instructions, because I'm a very auditory learner. And so I also have this problem with instructions that might not be homework, but they might be, let's say there's a particular exercise that the therapist has to help you with. Maybe they have to, I don't know, hold a towel or something for you to do something with it. I've got an exercise with my neck that's sort of like that. And I can be on my very last physical therapy session after 8 weeks of doing it, and every single time, the therapist has to explain to me what to do. I don't retain it. It's partly a working memory thing with executive functioning. It's partly a whole picture thing. It's partly a I'm getting older and I forget stuff thing. And if you've seen my introduction video, just about me personally, I'm a sober alcoholic of 3 years. I really honestly think I killed some brain cells when I was drinking, and my short-term memory has never completely recovered. But regardless of all of that, even if you don't have all my baggage, this tip is a good idea because sometimes pictures are grainy when they print them out, or maybe, they give you 4 pages and it's all loose, and you put it in your car and there's no staple or folder or anything. I've done this a lot. And you lose a page. It's helpful to have looked at them while you're still with the physical therapist to know that there were 4 exercises and not 3, because the pages might not be numbered. To go, oh, something's wrong. Maybe I need to ask about this the next time. Tip number 10. Plan the session at the best time of day for you to be able to attend to your other needs. PT can take a lot of spoons. So this tip, do as I say and not as I do, because I never follow this advice and I always regret it, and then I always write it down for next time and then I never follow it. If you're familiar with spoon theory, you can relate to this. If not, Google it, because I'm not good at explaining that kind of thing. I'm going to assume that you know what spoon theory is, and if you don't, there's a ton of other creators on YouTube that have done a phenomenal job of explaining this. But even if you don't know what it means. So I tend to schedule physical therapy for when it's going to work for traffic, my work schedule, really everything else but being able to take care of my other needs. And then I get to the end of my day and I have to say to my poor husband, can you do everything else in the house today, because I can't. I'm done. So what that looks like for me right now is I'm doing physical therapy before work, and then I'm doing a 8-hour shift. If I were to do this differently, I might only work half days on my physical therapy days, or I would maybe take a day off during physical therapy and choose to work on a different day that I would normally have off, that I don't have physical therapy, because it's draining. I mean, you're working muscles that you probably have never worked before, or not in that way, and you add pain and you add discomfort and you add the fact that you're doing it for a whole hour at a time. It's just a lot. And if you have other responsibilities even above and beyond yourself, like children or a second job, another job, or a fourth job, because a lot of people need to do that these days because everything costs so much money, or elder care, or anything else that you have going on in your life. I hate to say it, but when you get injuries and stuff, and you have to do this kind of thing, I don't like admitting that I can't spin all the plates, but I can't spin all the plates. So coming to terms with that before you schedule the PT can be a good thing if you can manage to do it and not find out the hard way each and every time. So that's the last tip for today. I'm not going to make a closing slide because I'm tired of making slides today, but if you've stuck with me this far, I promise I am getting better audio equipment. I don't know what the deal is, because I have the audio settings set exactly the same for every single take, and every single take, the audio quality is different. And as much as I mess with settings after the fact in my video editing software, I can't fix it. It's beyond my skill level, and I have pretty basic video editing software at this point because I'm brand new at it, and I just wanted something where I can drag and drop things. But I do have better equipment on the way, so I can at least rule that out. So I appreciate your patience with that, and a mea culpa, and I promise that in the future, when I get better equipment, that I will hopefully have better quality and can be more consistent. Because I know it's frustrating every time a new audio track starts that you're like having to adjust your volume or move your headphones a little bit away from your ears or whatever. So I'm trying my best. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to produce more videos, maybe on PT, maybe on some other things this week, maybe on something that's kind of funny because I've got an idea in mind. But in any effect, thanks for being on the journey with me. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content, and have a great day.